Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Platting Board for October 2nd, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and may I have a roll call, please?
Ryan Morman,
Present.
Brandy Pennington,
Present.
Skylar Quinn,
Here.
Patrick Jones,
Present.
Kyle Merka,
Present.
Brendan Butler,
Butler.
Butler, sorry.
It's okay.
Sarah Catherine Bryan and Ashley Ploy are excused absent. You have a quorum.
Perfect. May I please now have a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes? And also, are there any corrections or objections in approving the minutes?
Mr. Chair, yes, there is one correction. On disclosure number 1, it says that I abstained, but I, in fact, did not, and I was a yes vote.
Oh, thank you very much. Give me 1 second here.
Commissioner, Patrick, which one? D? Is that what you said?
No, this is Mr. Merka, and it's
sorry.
disclosure number 1 under a special order of business, which would be C, section
okay.
C.
That's correct. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Merka. We will get that corrected in the minutes. Are there any other corrections to last meeting's minutes? All right, hearing none, after the correction has been made, the minutes are approved. Let's see. Oh, apparently we need a motion to approve. All right. That motion has been moved by Merka and seconded by Butler. All right. Do we have any disclosures for tonight? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to disclose in case S12771, the petitioner's representative is S4, who I've worked with on an ongoing basis, and Triad is representing the petitioner for S12800, but I have nothing to do with either one of those cases.
All right, Board, hearing Mr. Quinn's disclosure, does anyone have an issue with Mr. Quinn with this upcoming vote tonight? And it looks like I already have a motion to approve, which has been moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Merka, which was to approve Mr. Quinn to work with the meeting tonight in case S12771 with no conflict of interest.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Quinn.
it was also S12800.
Thank you.
So this one's right, but it's also this one right here.
Okay.
S12800.
All right.
12800.
All right. All right, should I do into... All right, and I'd like to head into the consent agenda. All right. May we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? It has been moved to approve by Ms. Butler and Mr. Quinn. Are there any comments to the consent agenda? Nope. Hearing none, we'll move forward. Okay, and next we'll head into resolutions for... Oh. Oh, yep. Okay, sorry about that. We'll head back into the Platting Board. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for its regular meetings, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is: 1. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Number 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission's Rules of Procedure. A, petitioners, including all his/her representatives, are given 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. are allotted 5 minutes, and individuals are allotted 3 minutes. Number 3, when your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Number 4, any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the board's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 21.03.050A.4.A. Again, following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may, within 20 days, file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with Section 21.03.050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. All right. All right, heading into new business tonight, we will begin the public hearing. And may we please have the staff presentation for case S12771.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So this property is located west of Glen Highway, north of Clutona Park Drive in Eagle River. It is a request for a second 60-month time extension for Powder Hills at Powder Reserve subdivision. The petitioner is requesting this time extension because it's a large residential subdivision and more time is needed to continue resolving issues with AWW regarding water and sewer mainline extensions into the parcel. In 2014, the Planning and Zoning Commission granted the 60-month approval. Subsequent to that, they applied for a time extension until July 21st, 2024. The second final time extension was received in March of 2024 prior to the expiration date, and therefore Planning Department is recommending approval of the second time extension to July 21st, 2029. None of the reviewing agencies object to the time extension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board to the staff? Hearing none, do we have a petitioner here for the presentation? And if you could come forward and state and spell your name for the record.
Good evening. Craig Bennett with S4 Group, and that's B-E-N-N-E-T-T. And I'm representing the petitioner tonight on this time extension. And it's fairly simple, asking for a time extension, and I'm just here to see if there's any questions.
Do I hear any questions for Mr. Bennett? Yes.
Just kind of curious to see if the AWWU negotiations are causing the current conditions to be substantially the same as that existed when the preliminary plat was originally approved. Do you see a forthcoming resolution within the next 60 months?
Through the chair, yes, I do. AWU has received some funds for upgrading sewer downstream from here, and that was one of the main concerns, not just on-site, but downstream. And I believe over the next few years, they are planning on doing those upgrades.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I would, assuming you'd like to keep the remainder of your time for any rebuttals?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. At this time, we would like to open up the hearing to public testimony. So if anybody from the public wishes to come testify regarding case S12771, please step forward. Seeing none, we will move to any final questions of staff or the petitioner from the board. Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. And may I have a motion to vote? All right, the motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Ms. Pennington. Mr. Quinn, would you please state your motion?
I move to approve a request for a second time extension for 60 months for a previously approved preliminary plat S12440.
And Mr. Quinn, would you please speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. Mostly just going off the bottom of the page here. Staff says that it meets AMC 21.03.200C7 EV, quote, that the current conditions are substantially the same as those that existed when the preliminary plat was originally approved, and none of the other reviewing agencies object to the time extension, so it seems pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. And Ms. Pennington, would you please speak to your second?
Oh, sure. He wants me to read this. I didn't bring my paperwork. I have no comment, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pennington. Anyone else on the board wishing to add any findings? Oh,
Yeah, I can go ahead and add one too. I did want to just add as a finding that the submission made was before the deadline of the existing time period here that had to end. And then also, I think I'll be intending to approve this, and I think this would be a good opportunity to get some additional housing that we much need here. And I can see how, things with the water and sewer utility are very important infrastructure items to get correct. So I would recommend approving this. Thank you.
excellent, thank you. All right, and I'd like to call for a vote. All right, the motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Ms. Pennington. And, the motion has passed, 6 yes, 0 no's. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next. Okay, next in line, can we please have the staff presentation in case S12795, which is a request to remove plat note number 2 from plat 83-92.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request to remove existing plat note from 8392 that reads, tracks 2 and 3 shall share one common access to Lake Otis Parkway. So the petitioner is requesting the plat note removal, which will allow secondary ingress or egress to the northwest corner of track 2. The existing access from Lake Otis Parkway is a shared access with track 3, the mall, and this access point is congested with overhead power pole, surface-mounted transformer box, bollards protecting the pole, and surface-mounted transformers. Removal of this plat note will provide that track 2 with secondary access. Track 3 also has current secondary access to East 54th Avenue. Staff has found that condition A is met. The plat note has changed. At the time in 83, the 2 parcels were vacant, zoned industrial I-1 property. The retail commercial building built on track 3 was constructed in 84, and at that time access to Lake Otis Parkway was constructed. Track 2, for the most part, was vacant with some minor business activity until the construction of the car wash in 2011. So the car wash required more electrical demand and therefore required the installation of all the ground-mounted transformers and poles next to the existing electrical where they're drawing the power from. That created a pinch point, though, for the ingress and egress from Track 2 to Lake Otis Parkway. So removal of that plat note will help with the Track 2 secondary access. Staff has found that condition B is met. It will not have a negative effect on neighboring properties. Track 1 to the north takes access off East 54th Court. Track 3 shares access with Track 2, which is why there's some congestion. It's the intent of the property in order to provide that secondary access to Lake Otis Parkway out of the car wash there, which will minimize traffic congestion and backup at the existing shared access. It should be noted that the Traffic Engineering Department recommends approval of the plat note removal with conditions that they've placed on there. Private development right away had no objections either to the removal of the plat note. Staff finds condition C has been met. The plat would continue to meet the approved criteria for the subdivisions if the subject plat note is removed. The petitioner will be required to obtain a driveway permit for access to Lake Otis Parkway and meet the conditions required by MOA traffic. So therefore, Planning Department's recommended approval subject to conditions A, 1, 2, and 3 found on page 4 of the staff packet. But as I stated, traffic, they support removing that plat note, and they have a few things there as far as some of the conditions that they're placing. Other than that, that's the petitioner's here to answer any questions, and I am as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board to the staff? Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I did have a question regarding the traffic recommendation that they made here to put in a median across. My understanding that would be in the dual left-hand lane that would be in the middle of Lake Otis there. And in looking at that in relation to some of the adjacent roads, North Tahiti Loop is just directly up from that. So do you foresee any issues with vehicles coming out of North Tahiti Loop and what would normally, in a busy rush hour time, maybe go to that middle lane and then merge into traffic going southbound when it's able to? With that median in the way, it doesn't seem like that would be something that they'd be able to accommodate very well.
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, yeah, it's, that's traffic's comments. They obviously looked at Tahiti Loop. The petitioner may have something to add as well to that question, but it's a resolve with MOA traffic, so that's something that they're going to have to discuss with the petitioner and look at that. It may be their intent that they may not want some left-hand turns even from Tahiti Loop. I'm not the traffic department, but that's something that they're looking at right there. It doesn't go into specific details that your question, to answer your question. They're just saying resolve with them that median. But it is a valid point.
Another question for you. Do you think, obviously I know that you're not traffic, but do you think this could be remedied with a more right-in, right-out type curb approach on property to where there's a few of them around town. I think Costco on DeBar's got something similar where you have to, shoot in the kind of a triangular shaped curb section and kind of shoots you out on that same side. I mean, it seemed like something like that could be addressed. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it does look like they're restricting it, to resolve the condition to restrict it to a right-in, right-out. With the curb cut width that's pretty limited. And then it does look like they place it to be a minimum of 180 feet north of the existing shared access. So they must be taking a look at the minimum separations between like North Tahiti Loop, left and in and out. And I believe they did kind of look at that whole, and that's why they're placing that 180 feet there as the distance.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any other questions for staff? Oh, Ms. Butler?
Actually, I would like to know who would be the one to contact in the municipality of Anchorage to permit having a ground-mounted transformer next to a power pole to create this pinch point in the access to this plat in the first place.
Through the chair, Ms. Butler, I believe that would have been probably during construction after the plat, and it just doesn't really specific say where that access was going to be. It's just where it was built. You know, the access was built first, and Chugach Electric, in their easements, had put in that power pole. But then when further development came along, 30 years later, 35 years later, they're stuck with it being there, and they're within their easement, so they just put the facilities there.
Thank you.
Which is the reason why we're here tonight, to remove the plat note, because yes, the plat note put it there in '84, but then construction since then and has required that, it created that pinch point with development that was unforeseen at the time. They weren't really sure what was going to go in there. So it circles right back to around why we're asking for the plat note removal.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Any further questions? Oh, Mr.
Yep.
Jones?
Sorry, I have another one. I did see under the public comments section that they state how many public comments were sent out, and that there was one received, but I did not see that unless I missed it as part of the packet. Do you have access to that one public comment or know what that one was?
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, well, yeah, I'm assuming you, as I did, looked through the, oh, here we go. Nope, I'm looking through the public comments, and I do not see anything other than the agency comments. Let me take a look here at the staff report. One response was received from the public. We could ask the chair there if he knows if that was left out or if that's an error, because, oftentimes we rewrite these cases and we just kind of build on the last case. Hang on one sec.
We'll be with everybody momentarily, just double checking the paperwork. Thanks for your patience.
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, yep, it appears, looking through the staff, the file here, that there is no public comments received. It was just in error from a previous staff report. So I guess to correct the staff report, it would be no comments were received from the public.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification on that.
Yes, thank you very much. Are there any further questions to staff? I'm hearing none. Would the petitioner care to come up and present? Or are you representing the petitioner, sir? Yes. Oh, thank you. If you could, please state and spell your name for the record. You got to turn the mic on up there. It's a little button, and oh, you got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, good evening. My name is Warner Macedo. It's spelled out Werner Macedo. Yes, so my name is Warner Macedo. I'm a land surveyor. I work for Bell and Associates, and we are representing our client, Lena LLC, on this petition to remove note number 2 from the plat, which reads that track 2 and 3 shall share one common access onto Lake Otis. The reason for this has been talked about already. There is a congestion issue at the existing shared access. Both tracts 2 and 3 are commercial properties. And to alleviate this congestion, our client is hoping for the possibility to be able to build a second driveway near the northeast corner of tract number 2. That possibility is currently being negated by this plat note. Our firm has had previous conversations with the traffic department, and there isn't any objection to this possibility. But before any time and money can be spent on the application and the further, engineering review and details, we first need to address this plat note. there is comments, preliminary comments from the traffic department, but this is, again, we're trying to remove a plat note. The details will be worked when the application is formally submitted. I reserve my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Macedo.
Yes. Correct.
Thank you. Again, do we have any questions for the petitioner's representative from the board? Hearing none.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Again, at this point, I believe you probably want to reserve the remainder of your time for rebuttal.
Yes.
At this time, we're going to open it up to the hearing of the public testimony. So, Mr. Macedo, if anybody from the public would like to come up and speak in case 12795, please feel free to come to the front and speak. Good evening. And again, you're going to have to turn that mic back on. There's a little button up there.
This is press. Hey.
Yeah, there you go. And again, for the record, please state and spell your name.
My name is Don Gerhart, Gerhart. I am the Supervisor of Safety and Training for Alaska Laser Wash, which is located on Plat 2. I've worked for Alaska Laser Wash for about 8.5 years, during which time I have brought the company to be the first car wash in the nation to receive OSHA certification for the Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program. I have personally witnessed multiple accidents, near misses, there's so much chaos at that intersection because of the traffic from the car wash, the traffic from the liquor store, there's a small convenience store, there's a bread store, there's a lot of foot traffic. It's a cluster of people coming and going. They're not paying a whole lot of attention. We've been pushing for this for a while, and it's really important just for general safety. So I just want to present my personal observations.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gerhart. Any questions from the board? Well, thank you for coming up and speaking tonight in behalf.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to provide public comment? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Just to
Mr. Quinn?
correct the record, I don't think that was a public comment. I think it was a petitioner applicant comment.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. All right. Again, just asking, just to clarify, Mr. Macedo, do you have any further statements you wish to provide? You don't have to if you don't want to. Okay, thank you very much. All right, again, just asking any final questions to staff from the board or the petitioner. Hearing none, I'd like to close this for the public hearing. May I have a motion? Motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Butler. Mr. Jones, would you please state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve request to remove plat note number 2 from plat 83-92, which reads, tracks 2 and 3 shall share one common access to Lake Otis Parkway, subject to conditions 1 through 3 on page 4 of the staff packet.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, would you also speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I agree that this would definitely seem to improve the safety of that area. We've all been around car washes, especially in the winter. Things can get really icy with drippings and stuff from cars, so I can imagine this little interchange here can get kind of treacherous, especially in the winter months. So I definitely agree that it'll improve safety. I agree with the staff that criteria 21.03.200G9 has been met. And I also noted in the staff report that there has been approval from both lots in this case. So I intend to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Butler, would you please speak to your second?
Yes, I'd like to mirror the comments of Mr. Jones, that as per the staff packet, this does meet all the criteria of 200-03, 200C9, A, B, and C, and also the left turning movements in or out of the secondary access will also further ensure that there are no negative impacts on the adjacent or nearby properties and will not impede traffic and promote public safety, which is why we're here. So I plan to support the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Anyone else on the board wishing to add any findings? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Jones and Ms. Butler summed it up nicely. The only other thing that I would add is that I think this was platted back in 1983, and things have changed. I mean, that's a long time for conditions on Lake Otis and traffic conditions to change, and it probably wasn't an issue. It doesn't sound like it was an issue back when this plat note was put on, but this many years later, it is an issue. So I'll be supporting the motion as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Again, I'd like to move this to a vote. All right, the vote has passed, 6 yes, 0 no. At this time, I'd like to proceed with staff's presentation in case S12798.
Thank you, Chair. So what's being passed down is late comments that arrived today. One of them is in support of the plat note removal. The other one is, I believe, possibly in support. Mostly it's talking about drainage in the area, glaciation of roads. May not be totally related to the plat note removal. It's more of an indication of everything that's going on up there as far as maintenance and drainage. It's pretty wet up there. So this is case S12798, which is a modification of plat note. This is modification of plat note 14 from plat 2004-91 for Rabbit Creek View and Rabbit Creek Heights subdivision, a modification. The plat note reads, lots fronting on cul-de-sacs shall have no direct vehicular access to Carl or Nicolene. The petitioner is requesting the plat note modification to allow for driveway access to Carl Road for one lot on the corner of Carl Road and Viola Circle. So staff has found that condition A has been met. At the time the original plats were recorded in 1970, the design envisioned Carl Street to function as a true collector for the subdivision. Requirements to improve all of the subdivided right-of-way to municipal standards was not required at that time. The current daily traffic numbers along Carl Street are much less than what was originally designed in that subdivision plat. Carl Street currently is a 24-foot gravel roadway with drainage ditches. Viola Circle is a gravel road as well with a much steeper approach grade to the lot, as is the circle's very steep and a little bit less of a gravel standard. Allowing the lot to access Carl Street with adherence to municipal traffic standards for driveway spacing and grade limitations will allow for safe traffic and maneuvering onto Carl Street. Traffic engineering has stated in their comments that the driveways will be limited to a maximum width of 20 feet and has no objection to the plat note modification. Staff finds condition B has been met. The modification will not have a negative effect on neighboring properties. The modification of this plat note is only applicable to lot 15A in that subdivision. The lot that is subject to plat note modification has access directly to Carl Street, and the access to that Carl Street is preferred due to less topography and slope of their other driveway. It should be noted that traffic engineering, right-of-way, and private development departments did not have any objection to modification of the plat note. Planning department finds that condition C for plat 2004-91 has been met. It'll continue to meet the approval criteria if it's modified. Still facilitates the orderly and efficient layout and use of the land to the maximum extent feasible, even without the restrictive plat note and modifying that. So the subject property has frontage and constructed access onto Carl Street and Viola Circle, with Carl Street providing a much safer access point. Staff recommends approval of the modification of the plat note to read access from Carl and Nicolene from lots that have frontage on cul-de-sacs require approval from the Municipal Traffic Engineering Department. That's A 1 and 2, and the petitioner is here tonight to speak to it, and I believe they could probably paint a little bit better picture of what their existing driveway and some of the limitations here with winter coming that they're facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. I'm going to ask real quick for about a 2-minute pause. I need to read this public comment real quick. If you don't mind, just give me a couple minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for our brief pause while we read this late information. At this time, I would like to ask if the petitioner's representative would come forward and state and spell your name for the record. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Are you representing the petitioner?
I am the
Okay.
petitioner, yes.
Oh, thank you very much.
Michael Padilla, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, last name P-A-D-I-L-L-A.
Thank you very much. You can go ahead and begin.
Thank you. My wife and I moved here in April, and we bought this house on Viola Circle. At the time, a couple months go by, and we get a visit from a right-of-way officer who informed us that one of our driveways was in violation of this plat note, where we come to find out that the entire building never had a building permit. So I've been working with the planning department and traffic engineering on how to correct this issue to make sure we're adhering to all the standards and plat notes that we have on the property. The options that we have are either to remove this driveway to be not in violation or to get this plat note modified. So I came up with a plan with traffic engineering, which is to request a modification of this plat note, which is why we're here. The reason we're requesting it instead of getting rid of that driveway is Viola Circle is significantly down the hill from where the house was built on our lot. So the driveway access from Viola Circle is pretty steep and it's pretty narrow. We had 2 incidents, one where an Amazon driver would not deliver up that driveway. When we first moved in April, there was still snow on the ground. They had trouble getting up there, as well as when our household goods were delivered, they could not get up that driveway. They can only access the property via the Carl access. So that's why we're here today to request a plat new modification for easeability of access, as well as what we think is safety for emergency vehicle access if required. I'll save the rest of my time for any questions or rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Are there any questions from the board to the petitioner? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Chair. It says in here, and you just said that you bought the house in April of 2024, and then you submitted for a building permit.
That is correct.
But the permit number is R23. So was it submitted for and just not followed up on and issued, and then the house was built?
My understanding is there was a building permit that was requested and it was denied based on some violation at the time, and it was never requested. So when the contractor, after I informed him there's no building permit on the house, went back to repull it, they used the same original application. That's my understanding of the situation.
That's it, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Are there any additional questions? Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Yeah, can you, one of the comments that we received late was not necessarily an objection to this, but it was, the primary concern is drainage and how it, reacts down that road. Can you speak to kind of your driveway condition on Carl? Do you have a culvert or anything underneath your driveway, or how is that constructed right now?
Yes, we have a culvert. So we've had code enforcement officers visit the property, had conversations with them. He suspects it is to code, because I'm still going to have to pull a permit for that driveway and make sure it is up to code at that point. The second point, that road erosion that is occurring seems to originate from the opposite side of the road. With all the rainfall that we've had, it is creating ditches through the road, but it all starts on the opposite side of my driveway and cuts towards the middle, down south, closer to Viola Circle itself.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any other questions?
My question was the same.
Oh, thank you very much. All right. Hearing no other questions? Oh, Ms. Pennington?
This may not be in the purview of this board, but did you buy a new construction home?
We did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington.
I'm sorry. Were you aware of these issues existing?
No.
You were not. Thank you.
Ms. Butler?
Actually, I don't have a question, it's more of a comment, and I noticed that, yes, you purchased the property in April, and you had an application in July, so that was absolutely great that you acted so quickly to try to get this resolved, so just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Butler. Are there would you like to save the remainder of your time for any public testimony rebuttal, if there are any?
Yes, I would. Thanks.
Okay. At this point in time, I'd like to open the meeting up to any member of the public that wishes to come up and speak to case S12798. Hearing and seeing no other members of the public wishing to speak on this case, I'd like to ask if there are any final questions to the staff or the petitioner from the board. Seeing none, at this time I'd like to close the public hearing. May I please have a motion? All right, we have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Merca and seconded by Mr. Jones. Mr. Merca, would you please state your motion?
I move to approve a request to modify plat note 14 on plat 2004-91, page 2 of 6, which reads, lots fronting on cul-de-sacs shall have no direct vehicular access to Carl or Neclean streets, to read, access from Carl or Neclean streets from lots that have frontage on cul-de-sacs require approval from Municipal Traffic Engineering Department. And I will speak to the motion. I plan to support it, and we have some very recent examples of this area and access to Carl Street. I think that it is well within reason to access Carl Street from this property, and then of course staff support as well. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Merca. Mr. Jones, would you speak to your second?
Yes, thank you. I do want to thank the petitioner for taking this seriously and coming forward so quickly after this was brought to your attention. And it's unfortunate that this is something you're having to deal with your brand new house. But I did want to add, obviously, similar to Mr. Merca's comment here, we had a case very similar to this last month regarding access to Carl Street, and determined in that situation too that Carl was not developed to or is not seeing the use that it was necessarily platted for originally. So I agree with staff that it meets the requirements of 2103-200 G9, and that there is positive support from the neighbors. And then the petitioner has clarified the current culvert situation in their driveway. And I'm confident that working with the various departments right away and watershed or whoever else might be involved in this driveway process, that any corrections would be made in that case. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anyone else from the board wishing to add any findings? Hearing none, I would like to call for a vote. The motion to approve has passed to 6 yes, 0 no. At this point in time, we'd like to move on to staff's presentation in case 12800.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request to remove existing plat note number 3 per plat 2020-30 for Checkpoint subdivision. The petitioner is requesting the plat note removal to allow for permitting and development to occur on tract A1-2. This tract is south of the tract between Boundary Avenue. The removal of this plat note does not impact the 30-foot highway screening easement on tract A1-1, which matches current Title 21 standards of freeway landscaping. Thus, a review by the Urban Design Commission would be unnecessary with the development that will occur. Reviewing agencies had no objections to the requested plat note removal. And staff analysis finds that condition A has been met. At the time the plat note was placed on the previous plats, the requirement for L4 freeway landscaping did not exist. This was a old original plat note, and it just got carried forward. Currently, the current code contains requirements for freeway landscaping that will enhance and preserve the appearance of the municipality along these portions of the Glen Highway. Tract A1-1 is subject to the standards, and Tract A1-2 is not adjacent to Boundary Avenue. Staff finds that condition B has been met. Removal of the plat note will not have a negative effect on neighboring properties. Landscaping will still be required per AMC 2107-080 freeway landscaping, which meets or exceeds the original plat note number 3. Private development, traffic engineering, and right-of-way had no objection to this modification. Staff finds condition C has been met. Plat 2020-30 would continue to meet the approval criteria for subdivisions if the subject plat note is modified. The existing subdivision still facilitates the orderly and efficient layout and use of the land to the maximum extent feasible, even without this restrictive plat note. The petitioner will be required to retain the 30-foot highway screening easement and required landscaping. Therefore, staff recommends approval, subject to conditions A, 1, and 2, found on page 3 of the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodel. Are there any members from the board to staff? Ms. Butler?
I was actually there's a two-part question. First part is the plat note 1 going to be corrected to A1-1 as asked by DOT in their no comment?
Unfortunately, we're not able to correct that. That looks like a Scribner's error there with that original plat note that wasn't caught because, you know, what's before us tonight, what was advertised in the legal description and everything was only for this plat note. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question, and it's just because I'm not quite familiar with the Urban Design Commission, but what my question is, why a review by the Urban Design Commission wasn't done as opposed to an application for a plat note modification or removal? Because if the design meets and exceeds landscaping requirements of AMC 2107-080, would approval from Urban Design be easier, considering the petitioner will be required to retain the 30-foot highway screening easement and required landscaping, or does this restrictive plat note have a negative effect on future plans, if any?
Through the chair, Ms. Butler, I believe that might be a question for the petitioner's representative. I believe they are given the option of both, either, and they chose with this to kind of fix it because the current code is a little more, you know, the freeway landscaping exists, and they'll have to be installing that anyhow.
Thank you, Mr. O'Dell, Ms. Butler. Any other questions from the board to staff? All right, at this time, I'd like to ask the petitioners to please step forward, state and spell your name for the record. You got it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Walatka. Walatka spelled W-A-L-A-T-K-A. Good evening. My name is John Walatka. I'm a civil engineer in training, working with Triad Engineering. And tonight I'm representing the petitioner, Spinell Homes, in the request to remove Plat Note 3. Plat Note 3, just to reiterate, states that prior to development of tracks A1-1 and A1-2, site plan approval shall be obtained from the Urban Design Commission to ensure compliance with Anchorage Municipal Code 21.45.130. So for some brief context, tracks A1-1 and A1-2 are both a part of Checkpoint subdivision encompassed in Plat 2020-30. Our project with Spinell Homes primarily concerns the southern tract A1-2, which is the one for the proposed development. This tract is currently undergoing permitting with the municipality of Anchorage, and it was in the early stages of permitting this project that the Plat Note 3, was brought to our attention. And so with this, I think it was through a zoning comment that it was brought to our attention, and the stated purpose of the code referenced in the Plat Note is to protect visually the major entrances to the urbanizing areas of the municipality for the benefit of tourists and residents. And this is typically done in Title 21 through screening, landscaping, access, and signage. The intent of this code would be to require public review and involvement of landscaping and setback standards for properties immediately adjacent to any frontage road or freeway, in this case Boundary Avenue and the Glen Highway. So for tract A1-2, again, the one for our proposed development with Spinell Homes, is actually inland from Boundary Avenue and not abutting the frontage road and can only be accessed via vehicular traffic through Newell Street to the west and Whisperwood Park Drive to the south. So Plat Note 3 would not directly impact tract A1-2 for that reason, because it's not adjacent to the frontage road. A1-1 to the north is abutting the frontage road. However, Plat Note 1 on the same plat, 2020-30, states that no direct access to Boundary Avenue will be granted for tract, incorrectly, A-1, A1-1. So there also exists on the plat a 30-foot highway screening easement along the northern boundary of A1-1, and this screening easement meets the width requirements in Title 21 for landscaping standards along freeways. Therefore, elevating this review to the Urban Design Commission is, as currently mandated by the Plat Note, is unnecessary. And in closing, we just request the removal of Plat Note 3 to avoid, needlessly elevating the review. Time is a big consideration, getting housing on the market. It's important to note that the staff analysis of the request encountered no objections. Traffic engineering, private development, and right-of-way had no objections. And we also concur with the department's decision to approve the request. So yeah, thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to take any questions now or after any public testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Walatka.
Walatka, yeah.
Walatka. Are there any questions from the members of the board to the petitioner?
Actually, you answered most of my question about the difference and the choice between the Urban Design Commission and the Planning Board. I'm not familiar with the Urban Design Commission. That's why I'm asking about it. And what is the time difference between having them take a look, or is having that plat note going to affect anything in the future?
In terms of the Urban Design Commission specifically, I haven't worked on any projects that have gone through that review. But essentially just to save time, and the second we heard about the plat note and read through it, what was advised to us was to remove the plat note via platting board. So we're essentially going to a public hearing to avoid a public hearing, pick your poison kind of thing.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Are there any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Walatka.
Thank you.
I'd like to, at this time, to open up the meeting to members of the public. Are there any members of the public that wish to come to the front and speak to case S12800? Hearing and seeing none, I'd like to move into, are there any final questions from the board for staff or the petitioner? And also, Mr. Walaka, would you like any time for rebuttal? All right. So there, Mr. Walaka has closed his comments. At this time, I'd like to close the meeting to the public hearing, and may I please have a motion in case S12800. We have a motion and is moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Butler. Mr. Jones, can you please state your motion?
Thank you. I'd like to move to request to remove plat note number 3 from plat 2020-30, which reads, prior to development of tracks A1-1 and A1-2, site plan approval shall be obtained from the Urban Design Commission to ensure conformance with Anchorage Municipal Code 21.45.130.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And then again, would you speak to your motion?
Yes, I agree that this seemed like an unnecessary encumbrance to the tract A1-2 as it doesn't have immediate access to boundary there. So having this note on there would definitely not apply to this one specifically. There would be no need for landscaping on this particular highway screening, I guess, landscaping. And that also, I would agree with the staff report that it meets the requirements of 2103-200 G9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Butler, would you please speak to your second?
Yeah, I plan on supporting this motion. Private development, right-of-way, traffic engineering department, they all recommend approval. No public comments were received, no comments from the Northeast Community Council, the Mountain View Community Council. It meets the intent of AMC 2145-130 and 2103-200 G9. It visually enhances entrances and landscaping properties adjacent to the Glen, meets all the criteria. Definitely go with the staff recommendation to approve the removal of the plat note.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Butler. Are there any other, anyone else wishing to add any findings? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I definitely agree with Mr. Jones and Ms. Butler, but an additional finding is just going back through the purpose of the code section that the plat note references, and the purpose is to protect visually the major entrances to the urbanizing areas of the municipality for the benefit of tourists, and then it goes on to list the arterials there, and that purpose is fulfilled by the 30-foot easement and the current landscaping requirements for the tract to the north. And the purpose doesn't apply to the track on the south side because it's not protecting a major entrance. It's not abutting a frontage road or the freeway there. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. And at this point, anyone else wishing to add any further findings? Okay, hearing none, let's move this to a vote, please. The motion has passed, 6 yes, 0 no, in case S12800. At this point in time, thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and we would like to have a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.